Hello everybody, this is Dusty Circuit here, and I'm here to bring you the next episode of my series on kind of my history on ACO, and I apologize for kind of the series kind of stalling for a little while. I just kind of got into, just kind of some other things happened, and just recently, and let's just say I've gotten myself a little bit busy, and this might have also been a little bit of drama I got tied up in, but compared to how things used to go in my life, it wasn't all that bad. But anyway, for this episode, I don't really have as much to go over as really the previous ones, because I've already talked about most of my base and my farms already, at least the ones I have currently. But this is going to be more about the other things that happened in the revival period. And next episode, we're going to talk about kind of the things that brought ACO to kind of in the era that it is today, and just kind of how kind of the modern day ACO. And so, well, kind of in the episode about Atlantis, I talked about kind of what happened during that period, but it's mostly just kind of, and then I just kind of talked about my base. But at around a certain period, I think it would have been, I think this was kind of during the tail end of Atlantis being popular, or at least being very commonly, we're sort of in the tail end of it, and then people started moving out to go to their own bases. And then, so, I think this would have been around, well, if memory serves, I would say, kind of like early in 2018, or I think late 2018, early 2019. And although I guess probably my future self that's editing this video will put the correct date just on screen. But I know it's basically a role play in which there's two. Well, it was hosted by Taliesin, and it was basically this role play in which there'd be two sides that would be at war with one another. Well, it started out with two sides, but as it progressed, there were three sides and then four sides, and then it just kind of it got really muddy, and then it just eventually kind of died off. But so basically, what happened was because Taliesin's really into history and geography, it's like he's very fascinated with maps, and even to the point where it's like he would map out the area around his base, and of course he has that map on display in one of his portals, and just kind of as one of his projects he would do. And so kind of early on when Tully was on ACO, he kind of started it's like this was kind of I guess his intent was it was going to be this big role play where we'd all have fun, and It's like it was be at war, but in the name of fun. And but it was more a role play than actual battle. And at first I wasn't even really that interested in it. It wasn't anywhere near what my kind of where my interests would be in Minecraft. But then Colgutton joined the role play, but he kind of made up his own like team. And it was like so of course there was Taliesin's side, but most of the players were on that side, and then there was Colgutton's side, and for some of my viewers that don't really know a lot of the HCO history, Taliesin also goes by like Telly, and we'd also call him like the Teletubby, and of course and it's like we'd call him by like of course if anyone knows the Teletubbies, we call him by like Poe. I think it's like the red Teletubby, and that's kind of it's like it was sort of like a meme. Like it started out like it's like people couldn't pronounce his name, and it's like they just call him Telly, and it's like, oh, Teletubbies, and it just that's kind, and I guess he just kind of went with it, and but he was also really big into memes as well. Like he posted lots of memes on and gifs on the kind of in the early days of the Discord before like before the Discord was as structured as it is today. And let's just say there was a lot of like it's like especially during a lot of the Atlantis drama and kind of the other drama that went on. There was he posted lots of memes, and he would even make his own memes, and it was just I didn't really pay that much attention to it, but it was hilarious nonetheless. But anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get to the point. So basically, Tully kind of started his side of the war, and it was he went by the Tubby Empire, and then Colgutton started his own. He joined the war on his own side that he called the Concorp, because for a lot of you guys who don't know, Colgutton follows Hermitcraft, and he also likes to copy a lot of Hermitcraft, and just say and he got the Concorp name from Hermitcraft and I didn't really follow Hermitcraft during that period, but it was sort of one of the I guess teams like from there, and so when this war roleplay on ACO started, it was between the Tubby Empire and Concorp. And of course, me being friends with Colgutton, I decided to join the roleplay on the Concorp side. So it's like I'd be assisting Colgutton. And kind of as this whole thing went on, uh, the Tubby Empire grew to like I think more than 10 members, and I think but this was back when ACO was I think it had like maybe 20-30 members, and I think the Tubby Empire grew to above 10 members, and Concorp maybe had 3 members. And if I remember correctly, it was me, Colgutton, and then maybe a couple other players joined, and that was really it. But me and Colgutton were the most active members of Concorp. So it was literally just me and him against the big Tubby Empire. And so basically, and just and as it went on, we even had meetings to discuss like what it's kind of like how the game, how the whole game was to be was all what it was all about, and just like how it was to be conducted, etc. And I'm gonna go into Tully's portal just to show the what where we had the meetings, and I'm gonna do my best not to disturb any of his other portals, but I'm gonna go into the area where the meetings were held if I can find it. Here we are. So of course he doesn't really use this. This is kind of one of his older bases, and from what I understand, Tully isn't really as active here. But this was where the war meetings were held. And I mean, I even remember, and I even remember being in this area like it was yesterday. And it's like basically we'd all gather here. It's like as if we're all meeting together. Like Tully would be up there, and then like Tubby Empire members would sit on one side of the table, and then the Concorp would sit on the other side. And of course, like back when this started, we didn't even have the minecart seats, but it's like now I think later on those were added. And I even remember one time, since I recorded I always record the meetings. I think Tully even added a special spot for me to stand, and I think that's what this would have been for. And yeah, it's like basically like later on, it's like I would stand up here and record. Because down here, I'd be right next to other players, and I wouldn't even get a very good view. And so how how this went on. When the first meeting went great. It was just we went over more or less the general rules of like how the game was to be ran, and that it was supposed to be more of a role play than say actual like battles. And so going into this, I had absolutely no idea where I was going into because I have never done roleplay before. Like this is literally my first time doing it. And to put this, I don't want to put this too harshly, but let's just say kind of going into this kind of felt like if I were to learn to swim by jumping out of an airplane over the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. So, and it's like literally, it's if I jump out of an airplane with my feet and legs tied up, just dive plunging into the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, it's probably a bit too harsh to put it, but I have never done roleplay before, and I was diving into this like I knew what I was getting into when I really didn't. So, yeah. And so, originally, everything went to plan, but kind of as this whole thing went on, Colgutton had some rather ambitious plans as for it's like basically Colgutton wanted to build his own empire. I guess to match the size of match the size of Tully's empire, which I mean, I was all for. I wanted us to have as big of an empire as Telly, but we ran into the issue of Telly is technically the director of the whole game, and basically every decision that every team would make, all went down to him. It's like it's like if me and Colgutton wanted to expand the empire, it was down to ultimately Telly and the admins, which at the time would have been the Donster. And I think this would have been before Blue became admin. But so basically, for for starters, that wasn't exactly good for us because it just as a it just because it's just Concorp as a kind of as a team or as an entity just never got the power it deserved, at least in my opinion. And it's like everything was skewed towards Telly. And then let's just say Colgutton got a tad ambitious with how big he wanted to expand Concorp's power or territory. And of course, we ran into some disputes with, I think if I remember correctly, the Donster and Weyoungi also participated, but they were on their own team. So, and I think, so we had at least 3 different empires participating in this whole thing. And I want to say there was also a 4th side, but I think that was Abi. It's like he wanted to join, but he didn't join any side. I think he even joined. He even made he was even his own little entity. So I guess it technically was 4 sides, but uh, Tubby Empire and Concorp were the 2 dominant ones, or the 2 biggest ones. But let's just say, like, Colgutton and I had some plans to expand our territory, but at first we ran into disputes with the other empires, and I think like we ran into some disputes with Donnie and Weyoungi's side, and then it's like we kept like Colgutton kept stating we wanted to do this, but then Blue and Donnie just said, "Ask Telly, he's in charge." And then Telly finally gets on, and then he says no to everything, literally. And it just wasn't really fair to us at all because Telly always got the final word in everything. And it's like it's like he didn't even give much power to Colgutton. And I mean, I understand if part of this was we didn't want this whole roleplay thing to take up like 1,000 chunks of the server, but it just generally just I just wasn't very happy with it's just with it's like yeah, we were on our own team, but the opposing team had the final word in everything. And then one meeting later, uh Telly and Raven had a talk, and then we're like, oh, by the way, Elytras and Diamond Armor are banned. Like straight up banned, not allowed from the game, period. And that was the final straw for me because like Colgutton how Colgutton went about things was he'd look up videos on YouTube and of course since we were Concorp and we were just taking a lot of our inspiration from Hermitcraft, Colgan naturally wanted to build some of the Hermitcraft builds as like our headquarters and our base and etc. But there are just these really large scale builds that normally I would be using like diamond gear and elytra and beacons just to even like do these large scale builds, because it's just, well, that's just how I'm used to playing the game. And it's like if you were to take away like all my, it's like we only be allowed non-enchanted iron stuff, like it's the most powerful tools we could have, and we can only move around with horses, if that. That would have made those projects a lot more difficult. And I was not allowed to sink more time into the stupid roleplay thing than my own base. And it's like by that point I just ultimately threw in the towel and I'm like, I'm done. I'm not participating in this anymore. It didn't exactly go like that. It went with I threw a hissy fit, I threw a tantrum, and then that got me banned off of, well, not banned, but muted off of Discord for a little bit. And then the community, the server, unanimously voted me out of the roleplay, just because it would make it less stressful for me, and it would be less stressful for everybody else. And that's just kind of what ultimately happened. And but the roleplay didn't even continue on much farther after that. It's just, I remember a couple weeks after I was voted out, the game just kind of died off, because I think it was Colgan didn't. If memory serves, I think it was because Colgan couldn't put enough time into playing for the rest of the participants to really continue playing the game. And so it just kind of died off that way. And I don't really remember that much else after that, but the next big thing is I'm not really allowed to go too much into this because it technically is kind of a bad time in ACO. I guess it's technically a sore spot in Autcraft's history that's probably best to be left forgotten and not talked about, because it would just cause to stir up too much drama in the community. But without really diving too much into it, let's just say that because of circumstances, a few players, let's just say because due to circumstances, the Donster was stepped down from admin on ACO, and a few months following that, the Donster and the Sparkle Twinny and a few other players, and like Weyoungie and like a few other players have basically just left ACO and joined their own server that I'm not going to mention the name of for because it's in my best interest not to go there. And but after that, this was when kind of I want to say kind of the revival period was coming to a close, and what's marked as the Unity period on the ACO timeline began. And basically, so what kind of first happened was, of course, we started off of course, Player of the Week kept going like every single month, and we bring up, it's like it's like basically of course, everyone who watches my Player of the Month videos probably knows exactly how it went. It's basically everybody would attend these meetings, and we talk about, of course, first who got Player of the Week or Player of the Month, and then it would be then we would it was like some of us would bring up suggestions for events, farms, etc. But as of recently, due to the size of ACO now, farms are now broken off into their own separate meetings because 95% of the community doesn't care about farms, and basically the few of us that do care about farms kind of need to have our own meetings and our own farm team. And of course, ever since the farm meeting that's on my channel, that's when that became a thing. And I guess going off kind of in chronological order, wait, let's backtrack a little bit. So, also at about this point in the time, I began contributing builds to the community, and it's basically it's like I would build farms, and because I was looked up to as the farm genius of ACO, and I was the guy to go to for farms, and then I began to build farms, and the first farm I would have built would have been the gold farm. So, of course, I remember when this was built, and of course, I'm gonna do my best not to disturb whoever's using it right now, but this is basically this was the first community farm that I had built, and so kind of how it went about was Colgutton and I kind of decided one day we're gonna build a gold farm, and at the time this would have been a bit before. Of course, Colgutton also goes on vacation a lot, like in real life. Like he travels a lot, and this would have been about I think like about a year. It's like this would have been I think one of the few days before he actually had to go out somewhere into one of his trips, and kind of for both of us, this was a project for us to do before he had to go out on vacation. And so it was me and him built basically the whole spawning platform that you see above here. And I would have built this sorting system. And this sorting system has undergone a couple of changes since the last time I would have built this. And at first, it would have just been one row of chests, just kind of going along the front. But later on, I changed it to kind of this dual sorter design because just having one sorter wasn't actually fast enough to keep up with the farm. So, kind of my solution for the time was to just have two sorting systems. And of course that kind of fixed, because basically with just one of them, it's like the items would just kind of pile up and eventually they would despawn. And while most players simply use the farm for the XP, I use the farm for the gold as well, because I eat golden carrots, and especially since Hitman is just around the corner, I'm gonna use it for golden apples as well. And it's still a great farm even today, but as 1.16 is just around the corner, the farm team, which is probably mostly gonna be me, but everybody else on the farm team is open to do this as well, but we're going to be doing changes. Basically, we're going to be replacing the spawning pads with Bangma blocks. And also the anvils are going to change to grindstones. And that's going to make the farm more reliable and kind of fix it for one, so the update won't affect it. But even today, it's still a great farm. And I still use it to this day. I don't remember if the XP farm, which is the Guardian farm, or the Iron farm would have came next, but it's kind of the story behind this Iron farm. I mean, I covered this earlier in the series because at one point this was part of an old base that me and Colgutton's, and this used to be the older design that had the towers that I think was popularized by Doc M. But of course we changed it to this design because 1.14 basically changed villagers completely and broke basically every iron farm and villager breeder design made before the 1.14. So we had to change it to work in 114. This is the design I went with, and it's kind of by Grenben, and I might link in the video for those who are interesting. And it still works great today, but it's been brought up that in 116, its iron farms will be even simpler. So we might do changes to that. And basically I kind of just added this is kind of the sorting system, but I've also just recently added like an auto composting feature. So basically all of the poppies would get composted into bone meal. But that's also toggleable between always composting and only compost overflow. But also a bit later on, Blue had suggested that we add this chest, which is for players that just want to take the iron but don't want to AFK. But where that's not necessarily going to affect the farm. Because that was kind of a problem in the past, where basically some players would just come in here, take all the iron, and not AFK to get the iron back. It's like this just sits there in a chest, and they just take it, but that's not how community farms work. And here's the Guardian farm. And I would have built this entirely on my own. It was all by myself, but recently the Guardian Farm got a little bit of a, I wouldn't say upgrade, but just like change. Let's call it an optimization, because it's mostly to reduce the hopper counts and also to make the farm just work better in general. And we used to have a setup where the guardians would fall into stack of minecarts, and that would kill them through entity cramming. But I don't know if it was discussed like incorrectly in the farm meeting, or if it was just or if it was discussed incorrectly in the farm channel, but it was said that entity cramming causes like it causes extra lag, and it's best to avoid entity cramming if possible. Or at least that's what was said, and that was the basis that we changed the killing chamber on, and unfortunately that led to a bit of drama in the farm community, and to one member leaving over it. But at least it's over now, and we at least have a functioning XP farm now. And unfortunately, that kind of has the trade-off of, like, basically we're not using hoppers to collect the items. So, it's because the items go in so quickly that hoppers can't deal with it quick enough. And basically kind of how the item collection works now is basically there's like all the guardians fall onto like a piston, basically a floor that retracts with pistons. And the only way the items can be collected is basically those pistons extend and the items fall down into the water streams. Which kind of means that occasionally the guardians also fall down, but that's kind of a trade-off that I'd be willing to accept to have a farm that causes less lag, at least in my opinion. But if everyone has a different opinion. And I'll also show you what the rest of the farm looks like. I would say this probably took me, like the farm itself, probably around a week to 2 weeks to build, and the like killing area and collection room that I was in, probably about maybe 3 days tops. So and I didn't have, and I did this all by myself. I didn't have anybody helping me. And I would say that's not bad of a construction time, I suppose. But I really pulled off a lot here. And that's basically kind of the Guardian farm, the XP farm. And I actually use it still quite often, but most of the time I use the XP farm and the Guardian farm in my base, because it's still more convenient to go there than to walk through all these portals to get to this Guardian farm. And my next community farm would have been this squid farm. And I mean, when I first built this, it wasn't even that finished, so it was just mostly just stone walls and nothing else. But just recently, I had Iota help me finish this squid farm. And due to just the way the mob cap works, the squid farm only really is effective when, like right about now, when there's less players on the server. I'll probably, and I probably, now that I think about it, I should be doing more AFK sessions here, just so the rest of the community could have ink sacks. And a lot of my roles, I basically would AFK the farms because not many other players are really up to doing that. And I mean, especially now that I have a beast of a beastly computer that can handle 2 Minecraft instances running without breaking a sweat. I probably, like, actually am cut out to do the AFK, no problem now. And I also had a bit of a role in making this farm, but it was mostly between me and Hope. We were building it, but Hope made this mob spawner, and I made this cobblestone maker, and Hope made that charcoal maker, and I made this tree farm. And I still use it quite often because it's really the only tree farm on the server. Although I did make a tree farm in Colgate space that was TNT powered, but I really want to actually build it in my own base so that it's more accessible to me. And well, I'm not actually going in order, but it's okay as long as I'm covering everything in this video. It's fine. The Blaze Farm I didn't really have much of a role in. It was Ragnar had a Blaze Farm and he made it the community Blaze Farm. That's just how that came about. And this raid farm, let's just say it didn't go exactly to plan. And basically it was originally Avi's project. And then yeah, it was originally done by Mr. Avi Mage. And it was originally his job to actually build the raid farm. So then he took a break from it for a while. Then he came back to the project. And then, let's just say, he lost his sanity with dealing with all the pillagers because they would just literally, it's like they basically spawn in like they're the plague and they're a pain to deal with. And then let's just say Mr. Obby Mage basically just dumped the whole project on Modkiller because he really wanted to fix. He was really the one to always be like, hey, let's just do this, let's just do that, and then kind of the problem got dumped on him, and then let's just say the farm caused some lag on the server, and that led to a big, huge discussion about should ACO have raid farms, period. And let's say today let's say that never even became implemented. Like raid farms are still a thing, but there's no community raid farm, and it's like you want a raid farm, figure it out, and if it lags a server, you can't have it. at least until the farm team could get around to a solution for the community raid farm. This video is kind of running on long now, so let's get to the next big thing. But that I guess this probably ends off the revival period, which would be Blue becoming an admin. And this was a big moment. This is an important moment for a variety of reasons. So for one thing, we lost the Donster as our admin, and we badly needed an admin to take his place. And the thing is, Autcraft's admins are, it's like they're basically AF like hands, like cherry picks people that that he knows very well, and that's basically how admins are chosen. It's like AF cherry picks them based on kind of like what people he knows the best and who he would trust the most. And while that may sound kind of not like that great. I mean, if there's servers that where admins are literally selected like on like a coin flip or whatever. Like, I mean, if those exist, fine. But Autcraft isn't that one of those servers. Autcraft and more so ACO it's community driven and trust driven. And then I mean if us the players trust one another and we all trust each other to be kind and nice to one another and be courteous to one another, we don't need rules, or at least we don't need many rules. And that's just how ACO has gone basically since the revival period, and I hope for the best that that's how ACO is going to continue to be ran. Even when we pass 200, 300, 400, even 500 players. And I mean, I don't know exactly what the future is going to hold for ACO, but at least for now it looks bright, and I have high hopes that it's gonna go good ways. And yeah. But anyway, it's like when Blue became admin, it's in one ways it was kind of like the end of an era, because it was like kind of the end of Blue being a player. But in other ways, it was just one of those moments that is just burned into my memory to this day. Like I remember when I was there. I remember the player of the month when Blue was chosen as an admin. It's like I remember me there, and it was like of course it's like that moment where it's just the clouds parted and just the sunbeams came down from heaven, and it's just one of the best, one of the greatest moments in ACO history. And out of all the admins I've ever, out of all the AC admins, Blue's been one of the most, she's been one of the greatest admins I've ever known for more than one reason. One being, rather than being quick to just, mute me or throw me in, or like just ban me if I'm to actually do something wrong. She would sit down and have talks with me, and it's like whenever she would have time, she would have talks with me just to kind of just basically find like what the best solution for both me and the server would be. And I mean, most she doesn't. She's not technically minded by any means, and doesn't fully understand why farms are as big of a thing in Minecraft as they are, and why players want farms, and but but I mean she's just one of the most it's like she's one of the most like understanding admins I've known, and it's like you know. And I mean, if there ever was such a thing, and if there even was an autism mother on Autcraft, just Blue 333 would be that, in my opinion, because it's just I don't really know how to describe it, but it's like when the other admins would have just immediately banned me off of Autcraft just because my farm would cause lag on the server. Blue instead would just kind of pull me into a private channel and be like, "Hey, Dusty, this is your this is a problem, and I suggest fix it, or else AF is seriously close to adding rules to Redstone on ACO, and I know you would hate this to happen, and just I remember I built a sorter in my base, and it did cause some lag on the server, and that's just kind of how the conversation went. And I mean, well, it still wasn't the kind of news I wanted to hear. It's still a lot better than actually being banned and coming back there actually being a hopper rule on ACO. And I'm just forever grateful to have Blue as an admin, kind of for that reason. And also, like, and it just the and also you know, and it's not just Blue that puts on the events. It's also Riley that kind of coordinates them, and I think also Flaming does them to an extent, and I think there's a couple other players I'm not really naming, but props to them for just giving giving the community as a whole, like just making all of us feel welcome in this big community, just tying us all together with these fun events, and especially during this rough time when you know what is going on in the world, and it's just giving us like a nice like slice of the internet where we don't even have to worry about the ongoing pandemic, and nothing nothing else going on in the world, or even going on in our own families, that we would rather just spend time with Autcraft than deal with them. And then just ACO will forever be. I feel like ACO or Autcraft in general will, no matter how much drama or even or I mean even no matter how much farm drama or how many rules are put in place for redstone and farms even on ACO. I bet even if I play on Autcraft less and less in the future as a result of that, Autcraft in general will still always have a place in my heart just for what it represents and kind of for what it is and what it meant for me of just kind of like fight getting friends as a teenager and just kind of what I had to put up with it as a teenager and growing up and just the place that Autcraft has in my life. I don't think there's anything that could replace it. Anything that could ever fill the void. And I've just gone on for about this for 5 minutes, but anyway, of course, props to Blue and for all she's done for me, and props to just the wonderful community of that is ACO for just kind of put it for not only the events but just kind of for just keeping the community together. And it's just anyway, and also just props to Blue for kind of just and it's like, and there even was a period of time where Blue literally had to send emails to just like, and it took several emails to AF just to like get AF's attention to actually resurrect ACO back from the dead that it was in. And like no joke, like to even get like get player of the month and other things to where they are today, it took Blue several emails to AF, and just props to her for all of that and just all the obstacles that she had to not only just her in general, but everyone had to overcome to bring ACO up to where it is today. And while I do kind of miss the days when ACO was smaller for my personal reasons of farms and like wanting to have a base that has tons of farms and all that, but I mean, while I miss the old days for that reason, I don't miss the old days of ACO for kind of it just being the dead server, and I'm happy at least it's the thriving community that it is today. And I mean, even if farms take a turn, even if redstone and farms take a turn for the worst, ACO at the very least is still gonna have a place in my heart. And I guess this kind of brings us to the end of this video. And remember to rate, and I guess thank you everyone for watching. Remember to rate, comment, like, and subscribe. And this is Dusty Circuit signing off. Peace out.